This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast. So, this is episode number 101, and it's a follow-on from the previous episode, which has proved very, very popular, and using the same format too. This time, though, it's created with golf enthusiasts in mind, where the 9 first-class guests that I've interviewed on the show to date about all things golf and mental toughness share their key take-home messages. You're going to hear about managing your emotions, getting the most from your practice, and a whole lot more, ultimately with the goal of helping you or your clients shoot lower scores this season.
Yeah, one thing is at the end of the day, you've got to have the skills necessary to play the level of golf required, to win on tour and get to where you want to be. So it's finding ways to develop those skills. So, I would say getting a coach that knows what they're doing and can really help you along the way, and really committing to whatever plan you put together with your team, basically. So I think that's one thing I've done really well, is I feel like I've got a really good team around me. We're in constant dialogue, and we're constantly reflecting on my results and how my practice is going and all that, and finding ways to just improve my skills as a player, basically. And at the end of the day, that is that's such a massive thing, is your ability to hit certain shots and start the ball online and all that stuff. So I would say find good coaches and good advice, and just commit to kind of just improving your game from a skill standpoint. That's a big thing I wish I'd been kind of told when I was younger, is read the obstacle as the way. That was a massive game changer for me. I think just a great book about kind of seeing obstacles for what they are, and just being able to handle adversity, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be a success in anything, you're going to come up against a lot of adversity. And I've had my fair share of it, in golfing terms, obviously not in terms of life, but it just really changed my whole mindset to golf. I learned how to deal with kind of things that weren't going quite right. Like I had a year where I was really struggling off the tee, and I got to the point where I almost thought, I'm just a bad driver of the ball. I can't, it's just my thing. I don't drive it well. But I read this book and kind of realized that, my driving's not great at the moment, but that's an obstacle, and you've got to deal with it, and you got to learn to improve in your driving. It just totally flipped my mindset on how to approach it. And I just, that was my issue, my obstacle at the time. And rather than curse it and kind of get depressed about it, I did something about it, and my driving has improved. And I think if you can have that attitude with everything in life, it's a huge thing. And The Obstacle's the Way by Ryan Holiday was just a massive kind of a learning point and a turning point in my kind of career, I think. And third thing,
tough question.
One shot at a time. It's such everyone says it, and it's such a kind of broad statement, but it really is if you can do one thing as a golfer, to be able to focus on one shot and one thing at a time, you'll not go far wrong. Because what I see the best players do is exactly that. And what I see the guys that struggle do is they get distracted, and they can be playing great in a tournament, and when the cameras come, then that distracts them. When the crowds, when there's more crowds, all of a sudden that's a distraction. If they're playing with a big name, that's a distraction, and all of a sudden their attention isn't on what they need to do. And you look at a Brooks Koepka or a Tiger, it doesn't matter what's going on, their kind of focus and intensity is the exact same over every shot, and that is a skill that needs to be developed. And we also talked about strategies on how to do that during the podcast, but if you can have one kind of mental skill as a golfer, it would be that. And obviously the whole obstacle is the way thing. If you can handle adversity and kind of handle setbacks really well, and then focus on kind of one shot at a time, basically, is what we'd call it. you won't go too far wrong?
So the first thing and the most powerful thing is ask yourself a simple question. Why do you play golf? Get clarity around the why. And then understand sort of the differences between a mastery and ego orientation around that. Because again, by the time you're scared on a golf course, the cause probably started long before you being on the golf course. It's between your ears, and the way the dominoes fall is it has to do with oftentimes the why. The second thing I would say is be careful of your reactions. The way that golfers condition their own fear is how they react. So the way the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, works is recognizes pleasure and pain. So for example, if I hit a bad shot, and after the bad shot, I'm embarrassed or I'm angry. Well, the brain experiences embarrassment the same way it experiences pain. It's a painful state of being. So, Dave, if you hit a bad shot, and after the shot I come up and I hit you, or I zap you and deliver pain and shock, and I do that enough times, you're going to be standing over a golf ball, and your brain is going to be anticipating, if I hit a bad shot, pain is coming, and so all of a sudden you're shaking over a shot. And the way it happens in real life is I'm not out there, with a cattle prod, shocking golfers or hitting them. But I don't have to be, because they do it to themselves with their reactions. So the golfer who reacts badly to bad shots, and by badly I mean they feel shame or guilt or embarrassed or angry, any of these negative toxic emotions, well, that aggregates over time. And so you condition your fear by conditioning the amygdala to make sure that bad golf leads to pain, psychological pain. And the amygdala doesn't really differentiate between physical pain and it's pain. And pain is pain. So psychological and physical pain is no real differentiation. So I would say be really careful about your reactions and how you handle poor golf. Golf will beat you up by itself. Don't help it. And then the third thing I would say is, one of the mantras we use around here is fearless swings at precise targets. Make fearless swings at precise targets. And so those are probably three of the drivers of the work we do here at Fearless Golf.
I think the important thing to understand is that putting, we need to use the body the way it's designed to move if we're going to be efficient at putting. We then need to become, to try and become instinctive is to recognize then what is your body, natural requirements of your body. And you'll find that putters need to be longer rather than shorter. You need to stand up more into a position where you feel like you're more athletic. And that actually you can cure putting ailments, challenges, and severity of the yips in a fairly straightforward way. There was always a variable time frame. If the yips was the cancer of golf, then, the common cold of not feeling great, standing over a couple of putts and missing a few, happens to us all, and the common cold might be a couple of days and the cancer might be a few months, and a few years even. But it's, in that scale of challenge, there is a cure. You may be required to put in some work yourself. But now, certainly, over the last 5 years, I'm comfortable enough to pin my colours on the mast and say that in all coaching that I do with the right clients who are prepared to work at it, I guarantee the result 100% every single time.
Excellent. I like to finish on a positive note there.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh, summarise all that.
2 minutes left.
I think, golf's a tough sport. I would advise listeners to work hard at their mechanics, get the right information for them, as they'll have more fun and the game will be easier for them, but they've also got to work at their mind. Most golfers practice the physical and technical stuff, but they neglect the mental stuff. Simply because when I've asked them, they don't understand it, and they don't know where to look to get the help, I suppose. And also there's a little bit of stigma involved with people saying, "Oh, well, I don't feel I think very well, and I'm not in a good place mentally with my golf." So people are somewhat embarrassed a little bit to say it, but if the truth be known, David, we're all in our heads at times, and we're all battling the mental side of things in golf because it's such a challenging sport. So, I think understand your game, understand you as a person would be my advice, and you'll enjoy the game a lot more. Secondly, I would say, work your tail off. If you want to get good at golf, you need to put the time in. The quote now, the ladder to success can't be climbed with your hands in your pockets. So it's not just going to land in your lap. You've got to get the right information for you, and you've got to be willing to put the work in. And the combination of those two things are going to make a huge difference. Like I said, the people who really push on, they fall in love with that process of improvement, and they're always looking to get better every day, and even myself, who doesn't compete really anymore, I'm still chipping and putting every single day. I go in the garden in this lockdown, and I've got a tennis ball, and I'll hit it 100 times against a wall. I just love golf. I love kind of working at my own game and trying to control the ball better. So your success is going to be the sum of kind of small efforts repeated daily, I suppose. And then finally, just play with better players, more experienced players. I think for the younger players out there or people starting the game, never turn down an opportunity to play with somebody who's a good player. You'll learn lots about how they play the game and how they put a score together. And then, like I said earlier, work at your mind. That's really important in terms of your happiness as well.
David, I forgot about this point. Just had a blind blank. I hopefully I can. So I think number one, if you actually do really want to get better at golf, just keep some very basic numbers. Doesn't have to be anything amazing, but keep some basic numbers so you can say where you are and areas to improve. Number two, I think before you go and practice, ask yourself what you're doing and why. You scribble it down. I think scribbling it down and just sort of saying, well, what you're doing and why. And number three is on the range, just build yourself simple games that give you clear feedback and allow you to progress difficulty. And again, I've got a few that we can put some links to if people want it for the range and other bits. So there'd be my 3 points.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ryan. I think I've heard one of my other kind of great heroes in psychology, Dr. Kurt Strossel, who's another co-developer of ACT. He said that actually, psychology is pretty simple, really, when you're working with someone. All you're really trying to do is get someone to try something new. That's all you're trying to do. The reason they come in for help with a psychologist is because they've got into a little cul-de-sac, and they're struggling with something and they keep doing the same thing over and over again. And guess what? It's getting worse, not better. So all you're really trying to get them to do is to try something different. So I would encourage people listening in to do like a little behavioral experiment with themselves, over the next week, just try it out. For instance, it might not even be in their sporting context. It might be, in the relationship they have with their other half. I quite like playing a little games for myself where, I'll be really disagreeing with my wife on something and she'll hate me for saying this. We're in the midst of a discussion, as you like to kind of invert commas. And then I'll just tell her that I love her, but with sincerity, not to mock, but kind of just touching base with the value. My mind is screaming at me to call her all the names under the sun, and I'll do the opposite. So that's an interesting little game, is kind of just doing the opposite of what your mind is telling you to do in a situation you're struggling in. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 2 things there. We've got the try a new habit, if you like, and then the point that you've just touched on there. Would there be one other thing from the conversation?
Yeah, I would really kind of go to, values is such a big part of. I could probably spend a little while on this, but values is a big part of the model. And, if I said that in another way, that's, figuring out what you care about. Yeah. So, on the other side of, kind of engagement in high level sport, there tends to be a yearning for competence. Yeah. And kind of in all the noise of, as you move up through the levels and through the rankings, it's pretty easy to lose touch with, the motivations that you had playing when you first took up the sport, which would tend to be have this intrinsic quality, more of this self-determined quality of, playing, maybe a cliche, but for the love of playing, for the act of, trialing and erroring and learning from the experience and trying again, so I kind of say to my clients that, as and where is necessary, if I've got someone who's particularly frustrated with, a lot of beating themselves up in practice, I'll remind them that the journey towards competence has two passengers, success and failure. Yeah. You can't take that journey with only one, because our minds will tell us that we only want the good stuff. We only want it one way. But that's not how this plays out, right? So kind of being a bit more open and willing to kind of have the failure part of that aspect of trial and error, which is 500 million-year-old process, by the way. Don't kid yourself that it's going to come any other way. But can you kind of learn the lessons that are there to be learned? And, it kind of softens the self-flagellation, the beating yourself up kind of aspect of that. And we kind of know this, right? From the greatest performers of all time, they love to fail. If you listen to quotes from Michael Jordan to Tiger Woods to whoever it is, they always talk about how they love to fail. Yeah,
and often
this genuine enjoyment of the process of getting better through trial and error, right?
And often you hear the saying, "There is no failure" as well. That's another one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You either win or you learn.
I think the number one thing would be to see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for an area that you can work on that is potentially only going to be beneficial to your game and probably your life in general. I think the other one would be, as we've talked about, is rather than forcing yourself to, rather than telling yourself, right, I'm going to go out there and be swan-like and just never react to anything today. That's not going to happen. But just play that game, play the observation game, make a game of it. Give yourself a cross, give yourself a tick, depending on how you've reacted to the shots, and observe, see what happens as a result of that. And then I think the other one we've covered this idea of body being a potential support, to be a bit more present to what's going on here and now. This all-encompassing cliche of playing one shot at a time is a tremendous skill to gain. And as I say, not just in golf, but life in general. The more that you can catch yourself ruminating about the past or jumping off into the future and just bring yourself back to the task here, whether it's getting this document done or finishing a report or sowing a piece of wood, no matter what the hell it is, the more you can just bring yourself back to. I think people who are effective in life in general just are pretty good at finishing stuff off. They'll get a thing done. We talked about before we came onto this about writing a book. And everybody says that they've got a book in them. Well, if you have, well, get on with it. But the thing you've got to do is, if you're going to write a book, you need to start with the first sentence. In fact, you need to start with a title and then start with the first sentence. But it's surprising, writing a book's a good example. If you set yourself the task of 500 words a day, it's next to nothing. I'll tell you what, if you write 500 words a day, you'll be surprised how quickly something starts to come together. A couple of months' time, you've got a few thousand words.
No, the trouble is that a lot of times you can be brave. And this is the interesting thing about bravery. We're gonna get psychological for a moment here, but bravery can be the biggest weakness in the world. The thinking that you can do it by yourself because you're brave and you're independent and you're strong, that's an error. Knowing that strength is being able to reach out and talk to people, find people, try people, and build this web of, you know, mentors, coaches. I like to call them. I remember I went on a seminar. Jeepers, 30 odd years ago, when sports psychology and psychology was just kind of starting out, really, and also self-development was just starting out. And I went on this 2-day course in Glasgow with this guy who was part of the Olympics. He was a mental coach for Steve Redgrave and stuff at the time. And one of the things that he talked about was building a board of directors. And that board of directors, some can be real, some can be imaginative, some can be somebody you can touch, some people who you can't. So, and I thought that was a brilliant way of kind of building your group, even if they don't exist. You know, so on my group, I had my grandfather and I had Plato. So I had people who, you know, from thousands of years ago. I had Rocky Balboa, you know, and I used to turn to these people. It's funny because later in my life, I met Sylvester Stallone and stuff like that. So it's funny how things happen. But then I talked, you know, had this conversation that, you know, I said, Sylvester, you, but not Sylvester Stallone. I said, Rocky Balboa was on my board of directors. And if I needed like motivation to go out for a run in the snow or in the rain, I would sit down and I would talk to my board of directors and I would talk to Rocky and he would say, come on, if you want to win, you got to go out for that run. And then I would put my jogging gear on and I would go out for my run. So, you know, if kids can't find, you know, the putting coaches or the psychologists or this or that, there's nothing stopping you making them up, you know, in your own mind and creating your imaginary board of directors. And you know, I think of Sevi, you know, when I used to talk to Sevi 25, you know, 30 years ago. And Sevi, you know, his board of directors were, you know, when he was a kid, was Gary Player, was Jack Nicklaus, was Lee Trevino. They were his heroes. And he used to try and hit a bunker shot like Gary Player. He used to try and hit a long iron like Lee Trevino. And so, you know, Ben Hogan was on my board of directors. You know, Arnold Palmer was on my board of directors. Sebi was on my board of directors. And it's funny, as life went on, I got to meet quite a few of these people who were on my board of directors. And that was quite cool. And so that's one of the things that these young kids out there can do. If they can't, you know, because not everybody has the money to afford a psychologist, an S&C, you know, a high-profile golf coach. But what everybody can do is create an imaginary board of directors. And you can sit down with them when you go to bed on a night and you can, you know, in a way you can think about it and you can talk to them internally. And they'll give you answers. And I think that's it. I think that all great people have some form of board of directors that they can talk to.
So I think probably my biggest one is the art of reflection. Reflect on what you do. So like reflect on it every practice. I tell my players, reflect on every practice session, take a couple of notes, what was good, what was bad. You know, if you're reflecting on your practice sessions and your days in general, then hopefully you're going to take the right action to improve on that. So did you practice well today? Did you practice badly? You know, if you did practice well, what was good and why was it not good? And I think that's if you get into that habit, then you should constantly be kind of tweaking like your ways of doing things. You know, you just be a tiny little thing that you change to make your practice a little bit better. That probably wouldn't have happened if you didn't take the time to reflect on what you did in your practice sessions. So I think the art of reflection is a number one there. Simple things like planning your day and then actually doing the day you planned. You know, you might plan to do like hit some balls, do some short game, a bit of putting, and then you end up just getting lost in your swing. You're hitting balls all day and you haven't done all the other things that are important. So planning like what you want to do in your day and then getting the habit of just doing it. And that's a very simple thing, but how many people actually do the things that they say they're going to do? I go back to my best players, my most successful players. They just get stuff done. They don't procrastinate. They just get on with the task in hand and get it done. And I think that's really, really important. Number 3, I would have the right people around you. Put a good team around you. And I've said to so many of my players during this lockdown that, you don't have to do everything on your own. You've got to, having someone that you can confide in, a coach, a psychologist, a parent, a friend, whatever it is, having a little team around you that can see you through tough times and then help you keep your feet on the ground in the good times. So I think they're probably 3 things that I see most people that are doing things well and performing at a high level do.
I'm going to keep this brief, as I'm currently recording this episode where I'm managing my energy levels due to a bout of COVID. So I'd like to say a big thanks to the guests for their takeaways, for their insights in the interviews. I thoroughly enjoyed the process, and I sincerely hope that you, the listener, got a lot from this episode, and it goes on to help produce your scores for the coming season. Also, a footnote, if you want to look to overcome any mental barriers in your golf performance this coming year, myself and my team would love to be able to support you. Feel free to get in touch via email, info@sport-excellence.co.uk, or through any of the social media platforms. You'll find all of the details in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.